AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew on holidays and now being accused of being selfish. I, 28F, have always been close to my younger brother, Mike, 26M, and his wife, Clara, 25F. Our families grew up together, so holidays and birthdays were always a big deal, with everyone coming together. I've been the kind of aunt who loves spending time with my nephew, Jamie, 4M, and I genuinely enjoy playing with him, reading stories, and going to the park. But for the last couple of years, things have changed, and I'm not sure if I'm wrong. Mike and Clara have always had a busy schedule. Mike works long hours in construction, and Clara manages her own small business, so they often rely on me to step in with Jamie, especially during holidays. Last year, I helped during Thanksgiving and Christmas because they had to travel for work. I don't mind helping occasionally, but it started to feel like an expectation rather than a favor. I try to set boundaries, but every time I mentioned needing a break, it was brushed off. This year, the situation reached a boiling point. I had been planning to spend Christmas quietly in my apartment because I needed some downtime. Work had been overwhelming, and I hadn't had a real break in months. I told Mike and Clara in advance that I wouldn't be able to babysit Jamie this year, and that I would celebrate Christmas with them another day, maybe in January. I also offered to drop by for a short visit, so I could see Jamie without taking full responsibility for the day. Their reaction was far from what I expected. Mike immediately became defensive, saying things like, "You've babysat him every year. Why would you skip this time?" And Clara added, "It's not just babysitting, it's family. You're supposed to help when we need it." I tried to explain that I love Jamie and want to spend time with him, but need to take care of myself too. I reminded them that I've been there every other year, sometimes traveling long distances just to help. I offered alternatives. They could hire a sitter for the day, or I could come for a couple of hours instead of the whole day. They weren't satisfied. The day I was supposed to spend with them, I stayed home. I spent the morning cooking a big meal for myself and watching movies I love. Around noon, I got a text from Clara saying, "We're disappointed. Jamie keeps asking where you are. We thought family helps each other." I replied politely, saying I'm taking this day to recharge and that I'd see them soon. Mike called me later, and it turned into a heated conversation. He said I was being selfish and that my refusal was ruining family traditions. He also brought up the fact that I didn't step in last Thanksgiving either, which wasn't true because I had actually helped that year. I tried to calmly correct him, but he kept insisting I was wrong. Since then, our family dynamics have been tense. My parents are upset, saying I should have put family first, while my cousins are taking sides online, saying I'm selfish for skipping a holiday with my nephew. Clara has stopped texting me, and Mike barely speaks to me unless necessary. Even Jamie, who is usually sweet and bubbly when I see him, seems a little distant because he doesn't understand why I wasn't there. I feel guilty for disappointing my nephew, but I also feel resentful for being made to feel guilty for needing a break. I've tried to explain my perspective multiple times, that my mental health and personal time are important, that I've helped plenty of times before, and that refusing this one holiday doesn't mean I don't care about Jamie. But every conversation ends with either guilt-tripping or anger. I also feel that my parents are siding more with Mike and Clara because they feel I owe them for previous holidays, which makes me feel trapped. I'm now questioning whether I handle things wrong. Should I have agreed to babysit, even though it would have meant sacrificing my mental health and personal time? Or am I justified in setting boundaries, even if it upsets others? I truly love my family, but I feel like I'm being punished for asserting my needs. The tension hasn't resolved. I've tried inviting Mike and Clara to lunch separately to mend fences, but they either cancel last minute or respond coldly. I worry that my relationship with Jamie will suffer long term, which is upsetting because I genuinely enjoy being part of his life. On the other hand, I don't want to keep sacrificing my own well-being every holiday just to avoid conflict. So, AITA for refusing to babysit my nephew this Christmas and prioritizing my own mental health, even though my brother and sister-in-law, and apparently my whole family, think I'm being selfish. I'm looking for perspective because I feel caught between my love for my nephew and my need for personal space. I don't want to alienate my family, but I also don't want to feel resentful every holiday. Where do I draw the line without being labeled selfish forever? If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. It helps the content grow and motivates me to create even more great videos. Turn on notifications so you don't miss any new uploads. By the way, I'm curious. When do you usually watch my videos? While working, studying, or just relaxing at home? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear from you. Thank you for your support. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's surprise wedding after finding out it was planned behind my back. I, 32F, have always been close to my sister, Mia, 29F, but lately, our relationship has been a little strained. Mia has always been impulsive and a bit secretive, while I'm more of a planner and someone who likes to be included in important family decisions. Growing up, I was the one who helped organize family gatherings, holidays, and birthday parties. I always made sure everyone knew what was happening, and I thought I had a reasonably strong influence on family events. That dynamic seemed to work well until recently. About 3 months ago, Mia called me out of the blue. She sounded excited, almost giddy, and told me she had some news. I expected it to be something casual, like a new job or maybe a promotion, but she said, "I'm getting married." I was shocked and thrilled at the same time, but my excitement was short-lived. I asked when, and she said, "Next Saturday. It's a small, private ceremony with just a few people. You'll get the details soon." That immediately set off red flags. First, next Saturday. That's less than a week away. Second, she mentioned just a few people, and I had a sinking feeling that meant I wasn't included. I confronted her gently and said, "Mia, I'm happy for you, but I don't understand. Why are you not telling me more? I thought I'd be part of this." She laughed nervously and said, "It's a surprise. You'll see everything soon, promise." That didn't sit right with me. I have always been part of every major milestone in her life. Birthdays, graduations, our parents' anniversaries, even little things like celebrating personal achievements. For her to plan something this massive and not include me, even as family, felt like a betrayal. The day of the wedding arrived. Mia's fiancé, Jason, 34M, is a really quiet guy, almost reserved. I met him a couple of times before, and we had good conversations, but I sensed that even he was aware I felt left out. The wedding was set up in a small garden behind their apartment building. There were maybe 15 people, including Jason's parents, a few close friends, and a stranger officiant I'd never met. I wasn't on a list. I had tried to call Mia in the morning to clarify if she wanted me there, and she said, "Just come by when you can. We'll be surprised if you do." That comment sounded dismissive and made me feel like an afterthought. When I arrived, the ceremony had already started. Mia and Jason were standing under a floral arch, and their closest friend were gathered around. I froze. Part of me wanted to march up and demand to know why I wasn't included in the planning at all, but another part of me wanted to just observe and be happy for her. I decided to approach one of her friends, Sarah, and ask what was happening. Sarah awkwardly explained that Mia had specifically requested it to be intimate and that only a few family members were invited. I realized then that even if I stayed, I would be crashing what Mia wanted as her private moment. But I also felt invisible, like my role as her sister didn't matter. I stepped back and waited until the ceremony ended. When it was over, Mia came over, smiling, expecting hugs and congratulations. I hugged her, but I couldn't stop my emotions from surfacing. I said, "Mia, I can't believe you did all this behind my back. I've always been there for you, and you didn't even tell me what you were planning. You made me feel like I'm not part of your life anymore." She looked startled and said, "I didn't want to stress you out with last-minute details. I just wanted it to be a happy surprise." I couldn't understand how leaving out your sister entirely could be considered a happy surprise. The tension escalated quickly. Mia started crying and accused me of overreacting. She said I had no right to dictate how she runs her wedding, especially since it was her day and her choice. I tried to explain that it wasn't about controlling the wedding. It was about feeling like my presence and support didn't matter to her. Jason quietly suggested we all calm down, but it didn't help. Our parents were confused, looking between us, unsure what was going on. My mom tried to mediate, saying it's a small ceremony and she wanted it intimate, but that felt dismissive as well. I wanted recognition that I was hurt, not just an explanation. Feeling humiliated and hurt, I left shortly after the ceremony ended. I told Mia I wasn't going to stay for the reception and needed some time to process everything. My parents were upset with me, saying I had made things worse and that I should have stayed to support my sister. I tried to explain that attending after being excluded felt like endorsing the lack of consideration for me. My dad told me I was being dramatic, that weddings are stressful, and that Mia's intentions were good. My mom said I should forgive her because she's your sister, and this was a special moment. But all I felt was anger and sadness. I had always been someone who celebrated my sister's achievements, and now I was left on the sidelines for what felt like an unnecessary secret. Since then, my relationship with Mia has been tense. She keeps texting me, trying to make me feel better and inviting me to family gatherings, but I feel like there's a barrier. I love her and want to be happy for her, but I also can't ignore how I felt completely shut out. I've tried talking to her, but she keeps framing it as my overreaction rather than acknowledging my hurt. I haven't attended any of the post-wedding events, and I've been avoiding calls from some mutual friends who tell me she's sad I didn't participate. I've started wondering if I'm the problem. Maybe I should have swallowed my feelings and been happy for her. Maybe my attachment to planning and being included is overbearing. But at the same time, it feels like family bonds should mean being acknowledged in major life events, not surprised with them as an afterthought. I haven't yelled, I haven't publicly shamed her, and I haven't said anything negative about Jason. I just stayed home to protect my own feelings. So, AITA for refusing to fully attend my sister's surprise wedding after being excluded from the planning? I keep going over it in my head, and I can't tell if I'm justified or if I overreacted. It's been 3 weeks, and the tension hasn't eased. I feel guilty for missing what should have been a joyful day, but I also feel hurt, invisible, and betrayed. I want a relationship with my sister, but I don't know if I can just pretend everything is fine when it doesn't feel fine at all. What would you do in my position? AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding after years of unresolved family tension? I, 28F, come from what most people would call a close-knit family, though that description feels like a distant memory more than a reality in my case. Growing up, my parents were very traditional and insisted that my older brother, James, 32M, and I follow rigid gender roles. I was expected to be demure, accommodating, and quietly excel academically without expressing frustration or disagreement, while James was given almost free rein to make mistakes, act impulsively, and generally have his way. This dynamic wasn't subtle. It shaped the way we interacted with each other and the rest of the family. Over the years, James and I drifted apart. I went off to college and then started my career moving across the country, which physically separated us. During this time, I maintained minimal contact, mostly polite messages during holidays or birthdays, but it was always clear that the relationship was strained. James has always been competitive, and even minor achievements on my part were met with backhanded compliments or comparisons to his superior accomplishments. Last year, James got engaged to his girlfriend, Amanda, 30F. On the surface, she seems like a lovely person, warm, funny, and generally pleasant. But the problem isn't her. The problem is James. In the months leading up to the wedding, my parents began dropping hints about how important it is for the family to come together, and how James really wants his sister there. I told them I needed to think about it, which was true because attending felt emotionally complicated. The issues began when my parents casually mentioned that Amanda had requested no drama at the wedding, subtly implying that my presence might be a source of conflict. I asked them to clarify, and they recounted small grievances James has carried for years. Minor disagreements we had as teenagers, an incident where I called him out on teasing me in front of friends, and a few other things that are honestly trivial. They framed it as Amanda not wanting negative energy around the big day. At first, I considered attending for appearances to keep the peace. I even tried reaching out to James to see if we could talk. I sent a carefully worded message expressing that I want to be on good terms and would like to attend the wedding if possible. He didn't respond for a week. When he finally replied, it was brief and cold, basically telling me that he's moved on and doesn't need me to attend. I was shocked because his tone was almost aggressive, like my effort to reconcile was unwelcome. After that, I started feeling anxious about attending. I imagined a scenario where I'm silently judged by James, with Amanda awkwardly trying to keep the peace and my parents hovering uncomfortably. I realized that even if I went, I would be forced into a performative role, pretending that everything is fine, when in reality, I would be surrounded by people who had dismissed my feelings for years. The thought of spending several hours in that environment made me physically tense and emotionally drained. So, I told my parents that I would not be attending the wedding. I explained that I have unresolved feelings with James and that attending under these conditions would be emotionally harmful for me. I emphasized that this is not about Amanda, but about my relationship with my brother and the long-standing dynamics that haven't been addressed. The response was immediate and intense. My parents accused me of being selfish, saying that I was prioritizing my feelings over family unity. They told me I was throwing away a relationship and that James would be hurt. My extended family also got involved, with texts and calls asking me to reconsider. Some messages were subtle, guilt-tripping. You've always been close to him. Don't ruin this day for him. While others were more direct, you're being unreasonable and petty. A few weeks later, I had a long conversation with Amanda, who reached out after hearing about my decision. She was incredibly understanding and said she didn't want me to feel forced or uncomfortable at her wedding. She even suggested that we could meet afterward for coffee or dinner to celebrate privately. While I appreciated her sentiment, I realized it didn't change the core issue. Attending the wedding would require me to set aside years of hurt and pretend that my brother's behavior was acceptable, which I am not ready to do. I also considered the potential long-term consequences. If I go, it could reinforce a pattern where my feelings are always secondary and my boundaries are ignored. If I don't go, I might face ongoing resentment from my family, but at least I would be preserving my mental health and asserting my need for respect. I chose the latter. Now, the situation has escalated further. My parents are refusing to discuss the topic calmly. Every time I try to explain my perspective, they either dismiss it or frame it as me being dramatic. My aunt even sent me a text calling me the villain and suggesting that I might regret this decision for the rest of my life. My brother hasn't reached out since our brief exchange, and I suspect he may be telling the family that I am overreacting or making things about myself, though I have no direct confirmation. I have no desire to escalate into open conflict, but I also feel strongly that attending the wedding would be emotionally unsafe for me. I've been wrestling with guilt because society often frames weddings as moments where family disputes should be set aside, but I can't help feeling that this is exactly why people's boundaries are often violated. My question is, am I being unreasonable for choosing to prioritize my mental health and personal boundaries over attending a wedding, even one in my immediate family? I genuinely want peace and would love a relationship with my brother someday, but right now, attending under these conditions feels like self-harm disguised as family loyalty. I am sharing this here because I feel trapped between family expectations and my own well-being. I know this will hurt some people, but I also feel like standing my ground is the only way I can begin to address long-standing issues without erasing my own experience. So, AITA for refusing to attend my brother's wedding due to unresolved family tensions and the emotional toll it would take on me. AITA for refusing to lie to my cousin's fiancé about a big secret, even though it caused a huge fight at their engagement party. This is long, but I want to give all the context. I, 28F, have a cousin, Rachel, 30F, who I grew up very close with. We've always been like sisters, sharing everything from childhood secrets to adult milestones. Rachel got engaged to her fiancé, Dan, 32M, about 6 months ago. I was thrilled for her and agreed to help with planning the engagement party. I had no reason to think anything would go wrong, but the events leading up to the party were stressful and ultimately ended in a major confrontation. A few weeks before the engagement party, Rachel confided in me about something serious. She had recently discovered that Dan had a history of cheating in previous relationships. She was upset and unsure what to do, but said she was planning to confront him and see if she could trust him moving forward. I offered to support her however she needed, but I reminded her that honesty and communication were crucial. She agreed, but seemed nervous about what would happen if this information became known to anyone else. The problem started when Dan found out that Rachel had confided in me. He contacted me directly and begged me to keep quiet about his past, claiming it would ruin the engagement if anyone knew. He said he had changed and that Rachel had nothing to worry about. I told him that I understood his concerns, but that I couldn't lie to Rachel or anyone else about the truth if asked, and that hiding such a significant issue could be harmful. He pleaded with me again, offering to do anything to ensure I didn't share this information. I refused, explaining that trust and transparency were more important than protecting appearances. Leading up to the engagement party, I noticed Dan was increasingly controlling. He tried to influence how Rachel interacted with her family and friends, even subtly warning me not to overstep in my support for her. I tried to remain neutral in public, but privately I continued to reassure Rachel that she could confide in me. She started asking whether it would be better to confront Dan at the party or to postpone, but she was worried about creating a scene in front of everyone. I told her it was ultimately her choice, but I encouraged her to prioritize honesty and her own boundaries. The engagement party was held at a small banquet hall. Rachel's immediate family, our extended relatives, and Dan's family were all present. Everything started smoothly with decorations, music, and speeches. About halfway through the evening, Dan tried to monopolize Rachel's attention, pulling her aside repeatedly, which made me nervous. I stayed close in case she needed support. During a toast, a mutual friend jokingly mentioned past relationships, and Rachel froze. She looked at me, and I could tell she was conflicted about whether to bring up Dan's history. I tried to offer a reassuring nod, signaling that I would back her up if she chose to speak. Rachel eventually decided she needed to say something. She took the microphone and, instead of a lighthearted toast, she addressed Dan directly. She revealed that she knew about his past cheating and that she needed to hear from him that he was committed and honest now. Dan was visibly shocked and defensive. He denied everything at first, claiming she was exaggerating or misremembering. The room grew silent, and several guests exchanged awkward glances. Dan then turned to me and accused me of siding with her and betraying him by letting Rachel know the truth. He insisted that I should have kept quiet and implied that I had ruined his reputation in front of everyone. I calmly explained that I had never intended to humiliate him, but I could not lie to Rachel about something so important. I reminded him that trust is the foundation of a relationship, and hiding the truth would have been a bigger betrayal. The argument quickly escalated. Dan raised his voice, calling me manipulative and saying I had turned a happy occasion into a disaster. Rachel defended me, saying I had been honest and supportive, and that she appreciated knowing the truth before making such a major life decision. Some guests tried to intervene, but the tension was high, and many people were clearly uncomfortable. After the party, several family members reached out privately. Rachel's parents were supportive of me, saying I did the right thing in prioritizing honesty. Some of Dan's relatives, however, were furious, saying I had embarrassed him publicly and that I should have stayed out of their business. Dan himself refused to speak to me, blaming me entirely for the confrontation and insisting that I had ruined his engagement. Rachel and I have spoken and repaired our relationship, but there is now a clear divide between me and Dan's side of the family. I keep replaying everything and questioning if I could have handled it differently. I wanted to protect Rachel, support her decisions, and maintain honesty, but the fallout was huge. I understand that some people think I should have stayed out of it or let her find out on her own, but I feel that allowing her to marry someone with a significant trust issue without knowing the truth could have led to much worse consequences. I'm also concerned about future family gatherings. I worry that Dan will continue to blame me for the party incident and that his family will hold it against me indefinitely. I did not intend to cause a scene or humiliate anyone, but I feel I had a responsibility to be truthful and supportive. So, AITA for refusing to lie to my cousin's fiancé about his past cheating, even though it caused a huge argument at their engagement party and divided the families? AITA for confronting my sister about her behavior at our family wedding. I, 32F, have always been the responsible one of my family. My younger sister, Lily, 28F, has a history of being dramatic and impulsive, which often causes tension at family events. We have always had a strained relationship, mostly due to her tendency to make everything about her and my parents' habit of enabling her. Despite this, I try to maintain civility for the sake of family harmony. Recently, I got married to my fiancé, Tom, 34M, and it was a beautiful event that we had planned for over a year. We spent months coordinating everything, from the venue to the guest list, to ensure the day was as smooth as possible. We invited close family and friends, and we were particularly excited about including our extended families, knowing how long it had been since we all got together. The problems started the day of the wedding. My sister had been asked to help with some minor tasks during the preparations. Nothing major, just things like helping guests find their seats and coordinating with the caterers if necessary. I assumed she would follow through because she had promised weeks in advance that she wanted to be helpful and involved. On the morning of the wedding, she arrived late and immediately started complaining about the dress code. She had chosen a very bright, neon-colored dress that completely clashed with the elegant, muted palette we had carefully curated. I politely mentioned that the color was very loud compared to what we had suggested, but she waved me off, saying, "It's my personality, deal with it." I felt uncomfortable, but tried to brush it off, thinking she might settle down once the event started. During the ceremony, she did not sit where we asked her to, and instead chose a front row seat that blocked several guests' view. When asked politely to move, she responded with a huff and said she didn't care, claiming that she had the right to sit wherever she wanted. This caused a minor disruption and left me flustered right before walking down the aisle. Tom tried to defuse the situation, but Lily's attitude was clearly deliberate. The reception was even more chaotic. She started loudly commenting on other guests' outfits, making rude jokes that were borderline insulting and constantly interrupting the speeches. When I tried to pull her aside to calm her down, she accused me of trying to control her and stormed off, grabbing a glass of champagne from a passing waiter and spilling it on the floor in the process. Several guests looked concerned, and a few children had to be ushered away from the spill. The tipping point came during the dance portion of the reception. She decided it would be funny to take over the DJ's microphone and make a roast of me and Tom in front of everyone, including our elderly relatives and some people we hadn't seen in years. She made several pointed comments about my weight, my career, and my relationship with my parents. People laughed awkwardly, and I could see the discomfort on my husband's face. I immediately pulled the microphone away and asked her to step outside. She refused and instead argued loudly that she was just having fun and that I needed to lighten up. After she finally left the reception, Tom and I were both upset and exhausted. Our parents later told me that they had a feeling she might behave this way, but they didn't think she would go this far. The next day, I decided to have a serious conversation with her. I called her and told her that her behavior was completely inappropriate, disrespectful to me, Tom, and our guests, and that it was unacceptable for a family member to behave in such a disruptive way at a wedding. Lily immediately went on the defensive. She accused me of being controlling, said that I was overreacting, and claimed that weddings are stressful and that everyone should be able to relax. I tried to explain that there is a difference between relaxing and actively sabotaging someone's wedding, but she would not listen. The conversation ended with her hanging up on me. Since then, the family's been split. Some relatives say that I overreacted and should have just let her have fun. Others are clearly on my side, saying that her behavior was entirely unacceptable and that I had every right to confront her. My parents are upset that I had a confrontation at all, saying that it will make future gatherings awkward. Meanwhile, Lily has been posting passive-aggressive messages on social media implying that I am too uptight and that I ruined family fun. I feel like I did the right thing by standing up for myself and Tom. Our wedding was supposed to be a celebration of our love, not an opportunity for my sister to be the center of attention in a way that embarrassed me and humiliated us. But I'm starting to wonder if I handled it poorly. Should I have just let her antics slide and ignored the behavior to keep the peace, or was confronting her directly the right choice? AITA for confronting my sister about her behavior at my wedding, even though it has caused tension in the family. AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me after he lost his job and got evicted. So, a bit of backstory. I, 32F, have lived in my city for about 10 years now. I have a stable job in marketing and live alone in a decent 2-bedroom apartment. My younger brother, Alex, 28M, has always been a bit unreliable when it comes to money and responsibilities, but we've generally gotten along fine. He's had a string of odd jobs and short-lived careers, none of which seem to stick, and has a tendency to spend money impulsively. I've tried helping him out before, mostly with small loans or letting him borrow things here and there, and he's always promised to pay me back or be more responsible, but it rarely sticks. A few months ago, Alex called me in a panic. He had just lost his job at a small tech company due to restructuring, and then, to make matters worse, he got evicted from his apartment because he couldn't keep up with rent. He called me late one night, sounding desperate, asking if he could crash at my place for a while until he got back on his feet. I was hesitant. I know he's my brother and I love him, but I also know from past experiences that letting him stay could easily turn into a months-long ordeal. I asked him how long he thought he might need to stay. He said, probably just a month or two, until I find something else. I agreed to let him stay for 1 week, thinking that would give him a safe place while he figured out his next steps. I set some boundaries. No loud parties, he contributes to groceries, he handles his own laundry, and he actively searches for a job every day. The first few days were fine. He was quiet, thanked me, and even helped with cooking sometimes. But after a week, I noticed things slipping. He started leaving dishes in the sink for days, stayed in his room most of the day scrolling on his phone, and didn't seem to be applying for jobs consistently. When I asked about a job hunt, he would say things like, I just need a bit of a break, or I've sent a couple of applications, I just haven't heard back yet. I reminded him of our agreement and told him that he needed to step up if he wanted to continue staying here. He got defensive, saying I was being too controlling and like my mom. I tried to reason with him, explaining that I'm not asking for much, just that he respects my home and tries to improve his situation. He argued that no one understands how hard it is out there. Fast forward another week. He's been at my place for nearly 3 weeks, still not contributing much. He asked if he could borrow some money for rent at a new place he claimed he found, but I refused. I told him I would help him brainstorm cheaper options or help him update his resume, but I couldn't just give him money that might disappear the same way past loans had. He got upset and said I was family but still treating me like a stranger and accused me of not caring about him. Things escalated when he started leaving my apartment in a mess. Clothes on the floor, food containers everywhere, and even one of my expensive kitchen gadgets got broken. I confronted him, and he said I was overreacting and he's stressed enough already. That was the final straw for me. I told him he had to find another place and that I couldn't have him living here anymore. He shouted at me, saying I was heartless and that he had nowhere else to go, but I stood firm. I offered to help him contact local shelters or short-term sublets, but I couldn't put my life and apartment on hold indefinitely. He left angrily, saying I'd regret it and that I didn't care about family. Our parents were caught in the middle. They understand both sides, but are disappointed in me for not helping my brother through a rough patch. Friends I've spoken to are split. Some say I did the right thing by maintaining boundaries, while others think I should have let him stay longer or given him money. I feel torn. On one hand, he is my brother and it pains me to see him struggling. On the other hand, I feel like I've already done my part, and letting him continue to live here without responsibility would hurt both of us in the long run. I can't help but feel resentful and anxious when I think about what could have happened if I let him stay longer. I also feel guilty because I know homelessness is serious, and I didn't want to push him into a bad situation. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother live with me indefinitely after he got evicted. AITA for refusing to let my younger sister stay with me during her divorce, which caused a huge family argument. This situation has been building for months, and I still feel conflicted about whether I did the right thing. I, 36F, have a younger sister, Claire, 32F, who has always been a bit impulsive. She got married 8 years ago to her husband, Mark, 34M, and over time their relationship became increasingly toxic. Mark is controlling, verbally abusive at times, and extremely manipulative. Claire recently decided to file for divorce after numerous attempts to reconcile and seek counseling. She called me one evening in tears, saying she had nowhere to go and asked if she could stay with me for a while until she sorted things out. I was immediately conflicted. My husband, Kevin, 38M, and I have a comfortable but structured life. We both work full-time, have 2 children, ages 7 and 4, and our home runs on routines that are essential for our children's stability. I also knew that having Claire move in could be emotionally and logistically challenging because she tends to be dramatic, overbearing, and often disregards boundaries. I wanted to help her, but I also had legitimate concerns about how it would impact my family. When Claire first asked, I hesitated. I told her that I understood her situation and wanted to help, but I couldn't guarantee she could move in indefinitely. I suggested alternatives, like staying with a close friend, a short-term rental, or even a nearby Airbnb, while I helped her navigate legal and emotional support. She became upset and accused me of not caring about her or our family. She said that Kevin and I were choosing routines over family, and that I was turning my back on my sister when she needed me most. I tried to explain that I cared deeply about her and wanted to support her in ways that didn't destabilize my own household. I also reminded her that I could help financially, accompany her to meetings with lawyers, and provide emotional support, but living with us full-time was not feasible. She refused to listen and kept insisting that I was the only person she could rely on, framing it as a moral obligation for me to let her stay. Things escalated when Claire called our parents for support. They immediately sided with her, arguing that I was being cruel and selfish. They said that family is supposed to be there in times of crisis, and that refusing to let her stay was a betrayal. I tried to reason with them, explaining that helping doesn't always mean letting someone move in, and that I was trying to provide practical assistance without putting my children and household in chaos. They weren't satisfied, saying I was making excuses and being heartless. Kevin and I discussed it extensively. He agreed with my concerns, emphasizing that having Claire move in would likely create tension, particularly because she and I have very different habits, and she can be emotionally volatile. We both worried about the effect on our kids, especially our youngest, who has anxiety and thrives on routine. Kevin suggested I set clear boundaries and offer support in other ways. I told Claire that she could stay with me for one night if needed, but that she would have to find another arrangement after that. I also offered to drive her to appointments, help her pack, and assist her financially if she needed help with moving expenses. Claire became extremely upset, screaming that I was abandoning her and that our parents were right. I was selfish and uncaring. She accused me of choosing comfort over family and said she didn't know how she could ever trust me again. The argument drew in our parents and a few close family members. Everyone seemed to take sides, with some saying I was justified for considering my own family's stability, while others condemned me for not letting her stay. Claire ended up leaving angrily and staying with a friend who had a small apartment that could accommodate her temporarily. The situation has caused long-term tension with our family. Claire has stopped speaking to me except for brief, curt messages, and our parents are upset with me, saying I need to make this right to repair family relationships. Since then, I've tried to support her in ways I can. I've helped her find temporary housing, offered rides to court appointments, and provided some financial support for moving costs. However, the emotional fallout continues. My parents have subtly criticized me at every family event, and Claire occasionally posts passive-aggressive messages on social media, implying I abandoned her during her time of need. I feel guilty because I do love my sister and want to help her, but I also feel that I had to protect my household, my children, and my marriage from potential chaos and conflict. I keep questioning myself. On one hand, I think I acted responsibly and set boundaries that were necessary for the well-being of my immediate family. On the other hand, I feel guilty for not allowing her to stay, even temporarily, and I worry that I've permanently damaged our relationship. I also recognize that my parents view my refusal as a moral failing, and I am torn between standing by my decision and trying to repair the rift with them. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister move in with my family during her divorce, even though it caused a major family conflict and left her feeling abandoned. AITA for refusing to help my sister move despite being told family comes first. I, 28F, have always considered myself someone who values family, but recently, a situation with my sister, 32F, has made me question where to draw the line. My sister, let's call her Emma, and I have had a complicated relationship. We grew up in a household where she was the golden child, the achiever, and I was always a little invisible. Despite that, I have always tried to be supportive, sometimes at the expense of my own boundaries. So, when she asked me to help her move across the country last month, I thought long and hard before I gave my answer, and it didn't go over well. Emma recently accepted a job in another state, which is a big career move for her. She called me out of the blue one Saturday morning, clearly stressed, and asked if I could help her move her things. I live alone, work full-time, and I've been saving for a long trip I've been planning for months. Moving with Emma would mean taking an entire week off work, spending my savings on gas, hotels, and meals, and basically putting my plans on hold indefinitely. When I told her this, she immediately got upset. She said that helping family should be a no-brainer and that I was being selfish. I tried to explain my situation, but she accused me of always choosing your little adventures over family, and reminded me of all the time she had helped me with past moves and life emergencies. I couldn't argue with that because, honestly, she has helped me a lot in the past, but it still didn't feel fair to demand that I drop everything this time. The issue escalated quickly. Emma started sending me detailed messages about how much stuff she had, how complicated the move would be, and how she had no one else to turn to. She even guilt-tripped me by saying that our parents would be disappointed in me for not stepping up, although our parents are halfway across the country and weren't even involved in the planning. I tried suggesting alternatives, hiring movers, asking a friend who lives nearby, or even paying someone to help her pack. She rejected all of them and kept saying, "It's not the same when family does it." I felt cornered and stressed just reading her messages, and it started to make me question my relationship with her. A few days later, she showed up at my apartment unannounced, dragging a moving box with her, saying she was just here to start packing and thought I'd give you a chance to help before I hire movers. I politely told her that I wasn't available and that she should really consider professional movers. She got angry and started raising her voice, saying I was treating her like a stranger and accusing me of not caring about her at all. I told her that I do care, but I can't drop all my responsibilities every time she needs something. She stormed out, saying that she would remember this and that I was choosing myself over family. I did not hear from her for a week, and I thought things might cool down, but the day before she was scheduled to move, I got a long, emotionally charged message saying that she felt completely abandoned and that our parents were right to be disappointed in me. She said she had found movers, but she was hurt that I wouldn't even give her a few days of my time. I responded, reiterating that I value her and our family, but I also have my own life, plans, and financial considerations, and that moving across the country is not a small favor. I also reminded her that I had offered alternative solutions that would make her move easier. She didn't reply after that, and I haven't spoken to her in over 2 weeks. Now, our mutual friends have started asking me about the situation. Some think I should have helped because family comes first, while others understand that my boundaries and prior commitments are important. I feel like I made a decision that prioritized my own responsibilities and mental health, but at the same time, I can't help but feel guilty. I've been replaying every message and conversation in my head, wondering if I could have handled it differently, maybe offered a compromise like helping for a few hours or doing something else to show support without completely disrupting my plans. But honestly, I don't think it would have been feasible. The idea of spending an entire week driving cross-country, paying for accommodations, and putting my life on hold seems overwhelming, especially when there are other ways she could manage the move. The tension has made me rethink how we interact as siblings. In the past, Emma has sometimes leveraged guilt to get what she wants, and while I have always gone along to keep the peace, I feel like there has to be a point where self-preservation matters. On the other hand, I am worried that by refusing, I've damaged our relationship irreparably. Our parents haven't taken sides publicly, but I know they're concerned about the fallout. I want to maintain a healthy relationship with Emma, but I also want her to understand that family responsibilities shouldn't come at the cost of my own life and plans. So here I am, questioning if I was wrong. Was I truly selfish for saying no? Or was I justified in setting a boundary? Is there a better way I could have handled this? Or is it normal for siblings to expect each other to make sacrifices for major life events like moves? I don't want to feel like a bad person, but I also don't want to feel pressured into abandoning my own life whenever family asks for help. AITA for refusing to help my sister move across the country, even after she guilt-tripped me and said our family would be disappointed in me. Hey friends, if you enjoy this content, don't forget to like the video and share your thoughts in the comments. We really want to know what you like and what could be improved. What do you think of the video? Are there any topics you'd like to see in future videos? Your feedback really helps us get better. Thanks for being with us. AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé participate in our family vacation after his behavior at Thanksgiving. I, 32F, come from a pretty close-knit family. My parents are retired teachers, and they live in a small town in Oregon. I have an older sister, Emily, 35F, who got engaged last year to a guy named Ryan, 37M. I have always had a friendly relationship with Ryan, but it's more polite than genuinely close. Emily and Ryan have been together for about 4 years, and Ryan moved in with Emily about 2 years ago. While he seems kind to Emily, he has a pattern of being dismissive and sometimes condescending toward people outside his immediate circle. This past Thanksgiving, our entire family gathered at my parents' house. My mom is an excellent cook, and everyone was really excited. Ryan was invited, and initially, everything seemed fine. However, as the evening progressed, his behavior became increasingly disruptive. First, he made multiple comments about the food, saying things like, "Oh, I usually don't eat turkey, but I guess I can try this, and this cranberry sauce is too sweet, don't you think?" in a tone that implied that he knew better than my mom. My mom smiled politely and adjusted the conversation, but he continued to comment and eventually started giving suggestions on how she could improve the dishes, which rubbed everyone the wrong way. Then, during a family board game, Ryan got frustrated when he lost and started loudly complaining that the rules were stupid and unfair. He argued with my dad, who was the game host, and eventually left the room muttering about how he didn't understand why everyone was playing childish games. Emily tried to calm him down, but he shrugged her off and went to the living room to watch TV. Several cousins later whispered to me that he always tends to make everything about him, and that his presence can ruin group dynamics. The final straw came during dessert. My younger cousin, Lily, 15F, was trying to show a drawing she made for everyone. Ryan looked at it, laughed, and said something like, "Is this supposed to be funny? You might want to take an art class before calling it art." Everyone was shocked, especially Lily, who looked visibly hurt. I tried to defend her, but Ryan just waved me off. Emily eventually took Lily aside and apologized, explaining that Ryan didn't mean to hurt her feelings, but by then the atmosphere was tense. After Thanksgiving, I discussed the situation with my parents and siblings. My younger brother, Max, 28M, agreed that Ryan's behavior was inappropriate. My parents were disappointed but reluctant to outright ban Ryan from family events, mostly because they didn't want to cause tension between Emily and Ryan. A few weeks later, my parents planned a family vacation to a cabin in the mountains for a week in February. Everyone was invited, and the expectation was that it would be a relaxed, bonding trip. When Emily mentioned that Ryan would be joining, I told her I didn't feel comfortable including him due to his behavior at Thanksgiving. Emily was furious and accused me of trying to control her life and turn everyone against him. She said that Ryan had been trying to make amends and that I was being unfair. I explained my reasoning. I didn't feel comfortable around him because of the way he had treated my mom, my cousins, and others during family gathering. I felt it would be stressful and unpleasant to have him there for an entire week, especially since the cabin is relatively small and everyone would be in close quarters. I emphasized that I wasn't trying to exclude Emily, just Ryan. The conversation escalated. Emily accused me of playing favorites and holding grudges. She said she had warned Ryan about my attitude and that he had agreed to behave. I responded that one apology and a warning weren't enough for me to feel safe or comfortable. Our discussion ended in a stalemate. I spoke to my parents about the situation. My dad suggested a compromise where Ryan could come, but with clear boundaries. My mom said she didn't want to have to police interactions and that she didn't think Ryan would follow any rules. Max supported me, arguing that our vacation should be a stress-free environment. In the end, my parents decided to leave the choice up to me regarding whether Ryan could attend. I informed Emily that, after much thought, I was asking that Ryan not come. She exploded and accused me of being selfish and controlling. She said that this could permanently damage our relationship and that I was prioritizing my comfort over family unity. I reminded her that she could still attend, and everyone else was excited to spend a week together, but I would not host Ryan. Since then, communication with Emily has been tense. She has unfollowed me on social media and barely responds to texts. Ryan has messaged me directly, saying that I'm being ridiculous and immature, and that I should reconsider. Several other family members have privately told me they understand my reasoning and that Ryan's behavior has caused problems in the past, but they are hesitant to voice it openly. I feel like I'm protecting the vacation and the family from unnecessary stress. I genuinely enjoy spending time with my parents, Max, and other relatives, and I don't want to deal with someone who has a history of belittling people, especially in a small, confined setting. On the other hand, I understand why Emily is upset, since she sees Ryan as her future spouse and feels I'm excluding him unfairly. So, AITA for refusing to let my sister's fiancé join our family vacation because of his past behavior, even though she thinks I'm being controlling and selfish. Additional context. My family is spread across multiple states, so this cabin vacation is a rare opportunity for us to be together. It's important to note that Emily has never acknowledged the impact of Ryan's behavior on other family members. She focuses only on his feelings and reputation. I am willing to compromise in other ways, like meeting for separate meals or shorter visits. But the week-long shared cabin trip feels like too much risk for drama. I'm also aware that some people might view my action as exclusionary, but I genuinely think it's a reasonable boundary to set in order to preserve the well-being of the majority of the family. AITA for refusing to lie to my stepmother about a financial gift from my father, which caused a huge family argument. I, 33F, have always been close to my father, Paul, 60M, who remarried 5 years ago to my stepmother, Karen, 58F. Karen has always been very particular about finances and family dynamics, and while I try to maintain a good relationship with her, there's been tension ever since she became a part of our family. My father has always been supportive of me and my career, and I try to reciprocate in every way I can. A few months ago, my father mentioned in passing that he had been saving to take a long dream vacation with Karen. He was very excited and asked if I might be able to contribute a small amount as a gift. I had recently come into a financial bonus at work, so I told him I could contribute, but I wanted it to be private between just him and me, as I prefer to give gifts discreetly. He agreed and said he appreciated that. I transferred the money directly to him, and everything seemed straightforward. The problem began a week later when Karen found out that I had contributed. She confronted my father angrily, asking why he had kept secrets from her and why I hadn't informed her about it. My father explained that I had requested privacy and that it was meant to be a personal gift, not something public. Karen immediately accused him of hiding financial matters from her and insisted that since they are married, all financial transactions must be transparent between them. She demanded that I lie and say the gift was actually for a joint account they had, not for the trip itself, so she wouldn't feel excluded. I was immediately uncomfortable. I told her I could not lie to her or my father about the gift. I explained that it was meant to be a surprise for him and that honesty was important. Karen became furious, saying that I was undermining her authority and that I had created a wedge in their marriage. She called me manipulative and selfish, claiming I had no right to decide how my father spent his money. I reminded her that he is an adult and has the right to accept gifts and spend them as he wishes, and that I was not trying to control their relationship or finances. Karen escalated the situation further. She called my siblings to complain, saying I had interfered in family finances and that I was trying to manipulate my father for my own purposes. She framed the gift as an attack on her and painted me as someone who was deliberately trying to make my father feel indebted to me. My siblings reached out to me, some cautiously supportive, others upset that I had allegedly caused tension in the family. I tried to explain the situation from my perspective, emphasizing that my intention was purely to give a thoughtful gift and that I had not interfered in anyone's finances. The situation came to a head at a family dinner a few days later. Karen confronted me directly in front of my father and other family members, demanding that I apologize for creating conflict and agreed to say that the gift was meant for the joint account. I refused. I calmly explained that the gift was for my father personally, that he had asked for it discreetly, and that I could not lie about it. She shouted that I was being selfish, manipulative, and disrespectful, and she stormed out of the dinner, leaving everyone uncomfortable. My father tried to mediate, saying he understood my position but also wanted to keep peace with Karen. He later told me that while he appreciated the gift and my honesty, he was frustrated that the conflict had escalated. Since then, the family dynamic has been tense. Karen refuses to speak to me directly and has sent several passive-aggressive messages through my father, criticizing me for undermining her marriage. My siblings are divided. Some say I was right to be honest, while others think I should have compromised to keep the peace. My father remains supportive of me privately, but seems stressed about managing Karen's reactions. I keep replaying the situation and wondering if I could have handled it differently. On one hand, I feel I was right to maintain honesty and respect my father's wishes. On the other hand, I understand that Karen feels excluded and perhaps insecure about her role in his life. I did try to communicate calmly and offer alternatives, such as including her in the planning for other gifts or trips, but she refused any compromise. I feel frustrated because I was trying to act thoughtfully and respectfully, and now the situation has caused a family rift. I worry that my relationship with Karen may be permanently damaged and that future family gatherings will be uncomfortable. At the same time, I feel I cannot compromise my principles by lying about something that was meant to be private and personal. So, AITA for refusing to lie to my stepmother about a financial gift I gave to my father, even though it caused a massive family conflict and made her accuse me of being manipulative and selfish. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering a family secret that changes everything. I, 28F, have always been close to my family, especially my older sister, Emily, 32F. We grew up in a small town where everyone knew everyone, and our family was one of those perfect on the outside types. Emily has been dating her fiancé, Mark, 33M, for 6 years, and recently they announced their engagement. At first, I was thrilled for her. I even offered to help with the wedding planning, which she appreciated because she is notorious for overloading herself with tasks and being extremely particular about how things are done. A few months ago, our parents, Carol, 58F, and Dan, 60M, started dropping hints that there were some family matters we needed to discuss before the wedding. Naturally, this made me curious, but also a little uneasy because our parents are the type to overcomplicate things and make small issues feel like crises. I asked them repeatedly what they meant, but they insisted it would be better to talk in person. Eventually, I agreed to a family dinner, assuming they just wanted to share some logistical information or maybe talk about family etiquette for the wedding. When I arrived at their house, the atmosphere was tense. After some awkward small talk, my father finally cleared his throat and said, "We need to tell you something important about Emily and Mark's relationship." My heart sank a little because I could sense this was going to be serious. Then my mother spoke, and what she said completely blindsided me. She revealed that Mark is actually my half-brother. Apparently, when my father was in his late 20s, he had a brief affair with a woman in a neighboring town, and Mark is the result of that affair. The timing was such that he was conceived around the same time as my father was married to my mother, but my father claims he didn't know about the pregnancy at the time. I was shocked, frozen in place, and immediately felt nauseated. My parents insisted that Mark has no idea, and Emily has no clue either. They said they only discovered it recently after going through some old documents and talking to the woman. My father swore that Mark being my half-brother doesn't change the fact that Emily and Mark are in love, but I couldn't even process the idea that my sister was unknowingly engaged to my half-brother. I left their house in a daze and spent the next few days trying to figure out what to do. My initial thought was to confront Emily immediately, but I knew that would cause a massive uproar, and I also felt it wasn't entirely my place to reveal something so devastating without careful thought. I considered telling Mark directly, but my parents begged me not to, saying it could ruin lives and families if handled poorly. I finally decided to talk to my sister in a neutral way, without giving the full details at first, to gauge her reaction. I invited her over for coffee, and after some small talk, I hesitantly told her that there was something about Mark she might want to know. I could see that her expression changed immediately. She pressed me for details, and I told her that our parents found out something significant about his family history. I left it vague because I wasn't sure how much she could handle. Her reaction was almost exactly what I expected: confusion, frustration, and denial. She insisted that our parents must be mistaken or exaggerating. She asked me to come to dinner with her and Mark to discuss it further. I agreed reluctantly, hoping that seeing Mark in person and hearing the truth directly from the source might help her process it. That dinner was surreal. My parents reluctantly shared the full story, and Mark was in complete shock. He said he had always suspected there was something unusual about his father's past, but he never imagined this. Emily was devastated, crying and shaking, asking how this could happen and why no one told her sooner. The tension in the room was unbearable. Eventually, after hours of discussion and arguments, it became clear that the wedding could not go forward. Emily was heartbroken, Mark was in disbelief, and our parents were wringing their hands in guilt. After that, I told Emily that I couldn't be around the wedding if it were to continue in any form, even if it meant rescheduling. She was furious with me and accused me of abandoning her at the worst possible time. She said that I was overreacting and that Mark is the man she loves, so the rest didn't matter. I explained that I could not ignore the fact that she was romantically involved with someone who is legally my half-brother, and it felt morally and emotionally wrong to attend or support the wedding. She accused me of being judgmental and insensitive to her feelings, and our parents tried to mediate, saying I should at least attend for the sake of family unity. I've been receiving constant messages from Emily, Mark, and even some extended family members pressuring me to reconsider. Emily keeps telling me that I'm letting a technicality ruin her happiness, and that I need to think about the bigger picture. Mark has also messaged me privately, asking if I will support them despite the revelation. I told them both that I could not, and that attending the wedding in any capacity would feel like a betrayal of my own principles and emotional boundaries. My friends are divided too. Some say I'm doing the right thing by setting boundaries and protecting my own mental health. Others say I'm overreacting and that now that the truth is known, it's possible to navigate it carefully and still maintain family harmony. I can't stop thinking about the fact that Emily could have children with Mark without knowing the implications, and the thought alone makes me physically ill. I've tried to avoid family events, but everyone keeps asking when I'll come around and support Emily, and it's causing a lot of stress. So now I'm stuck. I feel like I'm doing what I believe is right, but my sister sees me as a villain. Our parents seem torn, unsure whether to push me to support Emily or let me stay away. I know some people might think I should just put my discomfort aside for the sake of family, but I honestly don't see how I could ever attend the wedding without feeling sick or complicit in something that feels fundamentally wrong. AITA for refusing to attend my sister's wedding after discovering that her fiancé is my half-brother. AITA for refusing to help my sister move in with her new boyfriend, even though my whole family thinks I'm being unreasonable. I, 32F, have always been close to my family, but there's been tension lately because of my sister, Lily, 29F. She's always been a bit impulsive and tends to expect people to drop everything for her. I've learned to set boundaries over the years, which my parents sometimes interpret as coldness. But honestly, I've realized I need to protect my time, energy, and mental health. A few months ago, Lily met a guy Jake, 31M, and it seemed serious pretty quickly. They were dating for about 3 months when she announced that she was moving in with him. Now, moving in together is a big step, and I think she barely knows this guy. I voiced some concerns at first, but my family brushed me off, saying, "She's an adult, let her live her life." Fair enough, I thought, even if I didn't agree with the timing. A few weeks ago, Lily asked me to help her move. She wanted me to take a day off work and help pack and physically move her stuff into Jake's apartment. When I hesitated, she tried guilt-tripping me. She said things like, "You helped me last time," and "You're my sister, family helps each other, and even if you loved me, you'd be there for me." I work a demanding job, and I already have limited vacation time. Taking a day off to move her, especially when I think it's a rushed decision, felt unfair. I told her I couldn't commit to a full day because of work. I also mentioned that I didn't feel comfortable helping her move in with someone she's known for such a short time, because I don't want to be part of a situation that could go badly and create drama. Lily was furious. She said I was being selfish and unsupportive. She went to my parents and told them I refused to help her move. My parents sided with her, saying, "You're her sister, you should be there for her. What kind of family member doesn't help?" My dad even said, "If you cared about her, you wouldn't let her down like this." My mom kept saying that I needed to put family first. I tried to explain that family isn't about blindly doing what someone wants, especially when it involves major life decisions and personal boundaries. I also pointed out that helping her move might involve spending hours in a tense situation if Jake and I didn't get along, or if she started regretting her decision mid-move. I offered an alternative. I could help her pack boxes on the weekend before the move or arrange for movers, but I couldn't commit to the full moving day myself. That offer was rejected outright. Lily said it was not the same and accused me of making everything about myself. The rest of my family has now started treating me like the villain. I've received multiple texts from my parents asking me to reconsider and telling me I'm destroying the family bond. Even my cousins and extended family members have started weighing in, which makes me feel overwhelmed. Adding another layer, Jake's family is also excited about this move, and they've been reaching out to me to welcome me as the sister-in-law. I find it awkward because I barely know Jake, and I'm not comfortable being in the middle of a situation that seems rushed and potentially volatile. I've been feeling really stressed because everyone seems to think I should just drop everything to help my sister, but I genuinely don't feel it's reasonable. I care about Lily, but I don't feel that supporting her in this way is good for either of us. I also fear that if I give in, it will set a precedent where I'm expected to prioritize her impulsive decisions over my own commitments. My friends are split on this. Some say I'm right to set boundaries and not get dragged into a potentially messy situation. Others say I should help my sister because family comes first. I honestly don't know if I'm being overly rigid or if my family is pressuring me unfairly. At this point, the tension has escalated. Lily is distant and angry. My parents are subtly punishing me with guilt, and I feel like my relationships with both my sister and my parents are strained. I also worry that refusing to help might permanently damage my relationship with Lily, which is something I do care about deeply. I guess my main question is whether I'm being unreasonable for refusing to help my sister move in with her new boyfriend, given the circumstances. Is it really selfish to prioritize my own limits and mental health over what everyone else seems to consider an obligation? Or should I just go along with it to avoid family conflict, even if I'm uncomfortable and stressed? I've tried negotiating, explaining my reasons, and offering alternatives, but everyone keeps framing me as the villain. I'm exhausted from defending myself and wondering if there's a middle ground or if I'm expected to just accept the guilt indefinitely. I just want to maintain a healthy relationship with my sister and my parents without sacrificing my own well-being, but right now, it feels like that's impossible. So, AITA for refusing to help my sister move in with her new boyfriend. Even though my family thinks I'm being unreasonable, AITA for refusing to let my younger sister plan my wedding. Even though our whole family thinks I'm overreacting, I, 28F, have been engaged to my fiancé, Mark, 30M, for about a year now. We've been together for 6 years, and we finally decided it was the right time to get married. From the beginning, I knew I wanted the wedding to be a reflection of both Mark and me, And I also wanted it to be relatively small, around 100 guests, mostly close family and friends. The problem started when I told my younger sister, Jenna, 24F, about the engagement. Jenna is the kind of person who loves to plan things and be in control. She's always been like that. She's organized and meticulous, but she can also be a little bossy. I thought it would be fun to involve her in some small aspects of the wedding, like helping me pick out invitations or giving input on flower arrangements. I never imagined she would try to take over the entire planning process. About a month after I got engaged, Jenna called me and said she had some ideas. At first, I was excited because I thought she just wanted to offer suggestions. But then she started insisting that she would handle all the planning. She had already made a plan for the wedding in her head, including the venue, the caterer, the dress code, the music, and even the seating arrangements. She sent me a 15-page document with timelines, vendor contacts, and color schemes. I tried to politely explain to her that while I appreciated her help, Mark and I wanted to plan the wedding ourselves. I wanted the wedding to feel personal to us, not just a reflection of what she thought was perfect. That's when things started to get tense. She told me that I was being ungrateful and that she just wanted to help make the day special. She said that I was making a huge mistake by not letting her handle it because she has a real talent for event planning and that our wedding could be a disaster without her expertise. I decided to set boundaries and told her clearly that while I would love her to help with small things, the major decisions were ours to make. I also told her that if she couldn't respect that, she would not be involved at all. She got very upset and accused me of being selfish and dismissive. Things escalated when our parents got involved. My mom told me that I should let Jenna take the lead because she's good at organizing and I would regret not listening to her. My dad agreed, saying that it would save me a lot of stress. Mark and I tried to explain that we weren't looking for someone else to plan the wedding, but both parents kept saying that Jenna was excited and talented and that we should just let her do it. Jenna then started trying to guilt-trip me in more subtle ways. She would say things like, "I just want you to have the perfect day," or "I know you're stressed. Let me handle it." She also started talking to Mark about ideas behind my back, and he came to me frustrated because she was pushing decisions on him too. We both agreed we didn't want to let her take control, but we also didn't want to make family drama worse. Recently, the situation reached a boiling point. Jenna found out that we booked a venue she didn't approve of and called me in tears, claiming I had ruined the wedding before it even happened and that I didn't care about making it a beautiful day. She threatened that she wouldn't come to the wedding if she couldn't have any control. This is when I finally told her bluntly she could either support us and come as a guest, or she could step back entirely. I also told my parents that Mark and I were in charge and that any attempts to override us would not be tolerated. The fallout has been intense. Jenna hasn't spoken to me since that conversation. My parents are still upset and keep sending me articles about wedding planning and letting the experts take the lead. Some extended family members have taken Jenna's side as well, saying I'm being unreasonable and rude for not letting my sister help. Mark has been very supportive, but I feel incredibly stressed because it seems like everyone is against me for wanting to maintain control over my own wedding. I want my wedding to be a day that represents Mark and me, not a showcase of Jenna's planning skills. I've offered compromises like letting her choose small details, but she keeps insisting on managing the whole event. I'm starting to wonder if I'm really overreacting. I love my sister, and I don't want to damage our relationship permanently, but I also feel like this is my one chance to have a wedding that feels true to us. So, AITA for refusing to let my younger sister take over planning my wedding, even though my family thinks I'm overreacting. AITA for refusing to help my sister with her wedding after discovering she's been lying to me for years. I, 32F, have a sister, Mia, 30F, and we've always had a complicated relationship. Growing up, our parents were very strict and favored Mia because she was quieter and more obedient. I was loud, opinionated, and always questioning everything, which often made me the problem child in our family. Despite that, Mia and I managed to maintain a close bond for most of our teenage years, though there was always this underlying tension. A few years ago, I moved across the country for work. I love my job in my new city, but it's meant that family interactions are mostly over the phone or occasional visits. Mia, meanwhile, stayed in our hometown and married her college boyfriend, Sam. They've been together for almost a decade, and they seem happy on the surface. Recently, Mia got engaged to a man named Eric. She called me excitedly and asked me to be her maid of honor. Normally, I would have jumped at the chance, but something in her tone made me hesitant. It turns out that hesitation was warranted. Over the past few months, I started noticing small inconsistencies in what Mia was telling me. She would talk about Eric's career and achievements, but details never quite matched up. Then, a mutual friend called me, concerned, saying that Mia had been portraying herself as far wealthier and more successful than she actually is. I didn't want to jump to conclusions, but curiosity got the better of me. I started digging a little, not in a malicious way, but just trying to piece together the truth. I discovered that Mia had lied about multiple things over the years: her job, her income, the house she claimed she owned, and even some health issues. I realized that Mia had been fabricating a very polished image of herself to everyone around her, including me. Some of it seemed harmless, but some of it, like claiming she had a high-paying job she didn't, felt manipulative and designed to make her life appear perfect. When I confronted her about it gently over the phone, she became defensive. She insisted that none of it mattered, that people embellish their lives all the time, and that I was overreacting. I tried to explain that it wasn't about the lies themselves. It was about the betrayal of trust and the feeling that our entire relationship had been based on a version of her that didn't exist. She told me I was being dramatic and that I shouldn't let this ruin her wedding plans. Despite that argument, I tried to move forward. I told her I still loved her and would attend the wedding, but I didn't feel comfortable helping with planning, especially with finances. I had originally agreed to help organize some of the events and tasks, like addressing invitations and helping with vendor research. However, after the confrontation, I couldn't shake the feeling that any contribution I made would be supporting a false narrative. The breaking point came last week. Mia asked me to help her choose dresses for the bridesmaids and to coordinate some of the decorations. When I told her I didn't feel comfortable participating, she blew up. She accused me of being selfish and said that I was ruining her dream wedding. She said that I was punishing her for her lies, which she claimed weren't a big deal, and that I was overreacting. She even called our mother, trying to get her to intervene, and our mom sided with Mia, saying that I was letting my feelings get in the way of family. I tried explaining that this wasn't about being involved or not. It was about trust. I said I couldn't continue to be involved in planning something so important to her when I felt like I didn't really know her anymore. She refused to accept it and told me that if I didn't help, I shouldn't expect a good relationship afterward. Since then, the tension has been unbearable. Our extended family has reached out, asking me why I haven't been participating or helping, and Mia has been making comments on social media about how disappointing her sister is. I feel guilty, especially because she's clearly stressed about the wedding, but I also feel that agreeing to help would mean ignoring years of manipulation and lies. I've tried to compromise by offering to attend the wedding, to support her from the sidelines, and to be there emotionally without getting involved in planning. Mia refuses to accept that and has told me that my coldness is ruining the entire experience. I've considered stepping back completely, but I worry that would completely sever our relationship, which I don't want either. My friends are divided. Some say I'm right to protect my mental health and not contribute to something I can't respect. Others say I'm overreacting, that it's a wedding and family should come together despite past conflicts. I want to be fair, but I also can't ignore the years of deceit. So, AITA for refusing to help with my sister's wedding after discovering she's been lying to me for years, even though I'm still willing to attend and support her in less direct ways. The tension is escalating, and I'm worried this might permanently damage our relationship if I don't handle it carefully. I keep going back and forth in my mind. Is my refusal justified, or am I being unreasonable by letting past grievances overshadow her big day? I want to do the right thing, but I also want to honor my own feelings and boundaries, which have been disregarded for too long. The situation has reached a point where family gatherings are awkward, social media is full of subtle digs, and even casual phone calls feel tense. I'm trying to navigate this without burning bridges, but it feels impossible. I don't want to be the villain, but I also can't betray myself. So Reddit AITA? AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé handle my niece's schooling, which caused a huge family argument. I, 35F, have a brother, Daniel, 38M, who recently got engaged to his fiancée, Vanessa, 33F. I have a daughter, Emma, who is 8 years old and in 3rd grade. I have always been very involved in Emma's education, helping with homework, attending parent-teacher meetings, and carefully monitoring her progress. My teaching style is patient, structured, and tailored to Emma's specific learning needs, as she has mild dyslexia that requires extra attention in reading and writing. Daniel and Vanessa recently moved into the neighborhood and wanted to get involved in Emma's life more, which I welcomed at first. They would occasionally pick her up from school or take her to extracurricular activities, and I appreciated the help. However, things started to get tense when Vanessa began giving Emma unsolicited instructions about homework, reading, and writing assignments. She insisted that Emma should do her assignments faster, write more neatly, and complete extra work she hadn't been assigned. Emma started to complain that Vanessa's expectations made her anxious and frustrated, which concerned me greatly. I decided to have a conversation with Vanessa. I told her that while I appreciated her involvement, Emma has specific learning needs, and that pushing her beyond her level could be harmful. I explained the strategies I use to help Emma succeed without overwhelming her and asked that she follow the guidelines I set for homework and reading practice. Vanessa seemed to understand, but said that she thought I was being too protective and that children need to learn discipline and accountability. She insisted that Emma needed to learn to follow stricter routines to succeed academically. The situation escalated when Daniel and Vanessa asked to enroll Emma in a different tutoring program that I had not approved. They said it was more intensive and results-oriented, but I knew it used methods that conflicted with the techniques recommended for children with dyslexia. I told them firmly that I could not allow Emma to attend the program because it could confuse her and worsen her struggles with reading. Vanessa argued that I was being controlling and that I needed to let Emma experience different educational approaches. I reminded her that as Emma's mother, I have the final say in her education, especially when specific learning needs are involved. Tensions came to a head at a family gathering last month. Daniel and Vanessa were visiting, and the conversation turned to Emma's schooling. Vanessa criticized my teaching approach, saying that Emma needed more structure and discipline and that I was coddling her. I calmly responded that I was using methods that were recommended by her teachers and specialists, and that my priority was Emma's well-being and learning success. Vanessa continued to press, becoming louder and more critical, until I finally told her that I would not allow her to interfere with Emma's schooling. Daniel immediately took Vanessa's side, saying that I was being overprotective and that she was just trying to help. I told them that I appreciated their involvement, but when it comes to my child's education, I am the decision maker. Daniel argued that I was being unreasonable and that Vanessa had valuable input, given her experience as a former tutor. I tried to explain that general tutoring experience does not necessarily translate to effectively helping a child with specific learning needs, and that I was responsible for ensuring that Emma's strategies were consistent and developmentally appropriate. The argument escalated quickly. Vanessa accused me of being controlling and dismissive, and Daniel accused me of creating unnecessary tension within the family. Some relatives tried to intervene, suggesting that I compromise for the sake of harmony, but I refused to compromise when it came to Emma's education. I offered that Vanessa could help with other activities like art projects or reading for pleasure, where her involvement would be welcome and low pressure. Vanessa refused, insisting that all aspects of Emma's learning should be open to her guidance. Since then, our family gatherings have been tense. Daniel and Vanessa avoid discussing Emma's schooling with me, and I have limited their involvement to activities that do not impact her academic development. Some relatives have told me that I was right to prioritize Emma's needs, while others think I overreacted and created unnecessary conflict. Daniel has expressed frustration, saying that I am isolating Emma from family support. Vanessa has posted comments on social media implying that I am an overbearing parent who refuses to let others contribute meaningfully to Emma's growth. I feel conflicted. On one hand, I know that Emma's well-being and academic success require consistent, specialized strategies, and I am responsible for enforcing those boundaries. On the other hand, I feel guilty about the rift this has caused between my brother, his fiancée, and me, and I worry about long-term family tension. I've tried to communicate calmly and offer alternative ways for Vanessa to be involved, but she refuses to compromise. I also worry about Emma seeing family conflict and being caught in the middle, which could cause additional stress. I have considered whether I could have approached the situation differently, perhaps by explaining my methods more thoroughly or inviting Vanessa to observe a session instead of intervening directly. However, every attempt to explain has been met with dismissal or criticism, and I feel strongly that consistency and adherence to recommended strategies are critical for Emma's learning. So, AITA for refusing to let my brother's fiancé handle my daughter's schooling, even though it caused a major family argument and created ongoing tension with them. AITA for refusing to let my family control my wedding plans and causing a huge rift. I, 28F, have been with my fiancé, Mark 30M, for 5 years. We met in college, and after years of dating, we finally got engaged last year. From the beginning, I knew that planning a wedding would be tricky because my family is extremely traditional and very controlling, especially when it comes to any event involving public appearance, reputation, or family pride. Mark's family, on the other hand, is very relaxed, almost to the point of being hands-off, which initially I thought would balance things out. I was wrong. When we first got engaged, I told both families that we wanted a relatively small, intimate ceremony with just close friends and immediate family. This wasn't unusual for us. Mark and I both prefer simplicity over extravagance. I assumed this would be enough to keep everyone happy. I was wrong again. Within a week of announcing our engagement, my mother called me in what I thought would be a casual conversation. Instead, she launched into a lecture about how weddings are a once-in-a-lifetime event and should be grand and unforgettable, which she explained meant a big church, a full reception hall, at least 150 guests, and a 3-tier cake with professional photographers and videographers. I reminded her that Mark and I had agreed on something small and that we didn't want the wedding to feel like a performance for strangers. My mother said that I was being selfish and that I had no sense of tradition or family duty. That was the start of the tension. My father got involved next, but he was subtler. He suggested that since my parents were paying for part of the wedding, they should have some say in the guest list and the location. Mark and I are both financially independent and had told them that we didn't need their money. But my father insisted, saying it was not about money, it's about family. I tried to explain that our wedding should reflect us, not what our family thinks will look good on social media or in the community newsletter. He sighed and said he was disappointed, but didn't push further at that point. Mark and I decided to move forward with planning on our own, booking a small venue that fit our vision and sending out invitations strictly to our closest friends and family. The first problem arose with my extended family. My mother informed me that she had already RSVP'd several of her friends and colleagues without asking us, assuming we would understand. When I told her this was not acceptable, she became upset and accused me of being ungrateful. I reminded her again that it was our wedding and that while we appreciated support, we had boundaries and she needed to respect them. She said that if I didn't include those people, I was shaming the family and would be ostracizing myself from the community. Things escalated further during the menu selection. My mother insisted on a multi-course meal with specific traditional dishes, while Mark and I had chosen a more casual buffet that reflected our tastes and dietary needs of our guests. She threatened to cancel her attendance if the food wasn't changed. I explained politely that this was our wedding, not hers, and that if she couldn't attend under those conditions, that was her choice. She called me ungrateful and cruel, and I finally hung up after a 45-minute argument. The turning point came when my mother showed up at the venue unannounced a week before the wedding to inspect everything. She claimed she just wanted to make sure it was proper, but started criticizing the decor, the table settings, and even the officiant we had chosen. Mark tried to reason with her, saying it was unnecessary and that the wedding was already fully planned. She started yelling, saying that if we went through with this mockery of a wedding, the family would never forgive me. We had to ask her to leave, which caused a lot of tension between us and the rest of the family. On the day of the wedding, my parents barely spoke to me, and my mother refused to sit at the head table. A few of my relatives, who had sided with her, barely acknowledged Mark or me during the reception. Despite all this, our wedding was beautiful, exactly what we had envisioned, and our friends and Mark's family were incredibly supportive. The ceremony felt genuine, intimate, and full of love, the way we wanted it. Afterwards, my parents accused me of humiliating them publicly by not having the grand wedding they thought we owed them. They claimed I had ruined the family's reputation and that they would be limiting contact with me moving forward. Mark was furious, saying it was not his problem and that they needed to respect our decisions. I tried to talk to my mother and father about compromise and respect, but they were adamant that I had disrespected the family legacy. Now, several months later, the wedding is over, and my parents have barely spoken to me. They occasionally send passive-aggressive messages and have started guilt-tripping me over small things, claiming that they sacrificed so much for me. My siblings have also been caught in the crossfire, as they feel torn between supporting me and appeasing my parents. Some relatives have implied that I should have known better and that I owe my parents a traditional wedding. Mark and I are living together happily, and we're financially and emotionally independent, but I feel guilty because I love my parents and don't want to be estranged. So, AITA for refusing to let my family control our wedding plans, even though it has caused a rift and ongoing tension. I feel like I did the right thing by standing up for what we wanted, but I also feel like I may have handled things differently to avoid this family drama. I keep replaying the events and wondering if I should have compromised more, but I also don't want to regret giving in to their demands. I want to maintain a relationship with my parents, but I don't want to sacrifice my happiness or the wedding I dreamed about with Mark. It's a constant internal struggle. Thank you for watching until the end. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss new videos also. Leave a comment. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Your support and engagement mean a lot to me. See you in the next video.